Hi everyone, and yes, I am recording this second video in the same day as the lesson 1 video, hence the mask. So in this particular video, I'm going to walk you guys through lesson 2, which is all about how to graph equations in point-slope form. So you'll want something to write with and something to write on. If you're in my class, hopefully I provided some guided printable notes for you. Otherwise, feel free to just pause the video if you need more time to copy everything down. Okay, so here's what you need to copy for the very first problem. You do want to try and make sure that you're copying the graph neatly. Hopefully you've either got graph paper or graphing pad. Otherwise, just take your time. And then you want to write this point-slope form equation somewhere near it. When we're graphing an equation in point-slope form, or any form really, the first thing you need to do is you need to plot a point. Right? We need a starting point before we can continue to graph. So our first goal when plotting any linear equation is plot a point, use the slope to plot 2 more. In my class, I tell students you have to plot a minimum of 3 because if you only plot 2 and you connect it, it still makes a straight line. But if you plot 3 and one out of those 2 points, or excuse me, 1 out of the 3 points or 2 out of the 3 points are off, when you go to connect it, it's not going to make a straight line, so you're more likely to catch a mistake that way. That being said, if you're not in my class, check with your teacher on what they prefer. So step 1, we're going to determine what the slope is and the ordered pair is from this equation, which we learned how to do in the last lesson. So that's what we need to do first. Again, your equation in point-slope form is y minus y1 equals in parentheses x minus x1. Your slope is the thing touching the parentheses, which in this case is a positive 3/2. My y1 and x1 come for the numbers near the x and the y. And if you recall, since the equation has a minus sign in it, when I substituted here for the x value, it was x minus something, and then that's simplified to a plus. Well, think about what I would have to substitute for the value in order to make it a plus 2. Well, it would have had to have been a negative 2. So similar to what I said last time, you can think about it conceptually like this, or you can look at the sign in front of the number and just flip it for your ordered pair. So we've got an x1 value of negative 2, not positive, and my y1 value is just a positive 1. Once you've got this information, you've got enough information to do your graph. Start by plotting the point. We never use the slope to start our graph. It's not a point. The slope is a set of directions on how to move to get to the other points. I start at my origin. Negative 2, 1 is right here. I go left 2 and up 1. And I'm going to plot 2 more points. Now there's 2 ways I can do this. I could go up 3 and right 2. I rise 3 and I go to the right 2. Or I've got space to reverse both of those directions. I could go down 3 and left 2. It's important to understand all the ways that you can move using a slope because there may be some graphs where we don't have space to go up and right and we have to go down and left. So just something to keep in mind. And then we connect with a line with arrows on the end. You gotta have the arrows because this is a line, not a ray, and not a segment. And that's all we do. We identify the slope, the point, plot the point, use the slope to plot 2 more points. Let's do another. Okay, so number 3, I skipped one. There we go, number 2. Number 2, I want to identify the slope. And again, our equation in point-slope form is y minus y1 equals in parentheses x minus x1. So our slope is the thing that's being multiplied to our parentheses. If we don't see parentheses, our slope isn't 0. Our slope is understood to be 1. Let me see if I can write it in here to show you. There's really a 1, and then you can imagine that this part is in parentheses here. The reason why we're able to drop the parentheses, again, just like in the first lesson, if the slope is 1, we're multiplying this with 1, it's not going to change the value. So my slope is 1 here. And my ordered pair, again, look at the value near the x to get the x value and flip the sign. It's really a positive 2. For the y value, look at the number near the y, flip the sign. It's really a positive 1. I start by plotting this point 2, 1, which is right here. I go right 2 and up 1 from the origin. And then I use my slope to plot more. Now my slope is an integer here. You always want to make your slope a fraction so you can see how much do you rise and how much do you run. So I'm going to put it over a 1, and I can go up 1, right 1, or I could go down 1, left 1. And another thing I failed to mention in the previous example is look at the sign of your slope. I have a positive slope here. So when I connect my points here and I read it left to right, my line should be rising because it's positive. That's something else that you'll want to check. Let's do another one. Number 3. My slope, again, is the thing that's touching the parentheses. So in this case, my slope is 4/3. My ordered pair is going to come from the numbers near the x and the y, respectively. The x value is going to come from the number near the x. Flip the sign, so it's really a positive 3. There's no number near my y value. That means that when it was substituted in, it was a 0. Okay, if I subtract a 0, it's the same thing as just y by itself. So I've got the ordered pair 3, 0. This is going to sit right on the x-axis. We're going to go to the right 3, but we're not going to go up and down. And then I plot my other points using the slope, which again is positive, so I know this line should be rising left to right when I read it like a book. I can go up 4, right 3, or I could go down 4, left 3. Connect to the best of my ability. Let me try that again. If you've got a straight edge and you're doing this in your notebook, it's a really good idea to use a straight edge and then include arrows on the end. Let's do number 4. I've got a slope of -1. Remember, there's a -1, sitting in front of that parentheses. Just going to rewrite our equation every single time. You should be doing that as well, rewriting that equation every single time till it's ingrained in your mind. We've got a slope of -1. My ordered pair, I'm going to have an x value of a positive 1, not a negative, and I'm going to have a y value of -4, not positive. Again, think about what was substituted into the equation y minus y1. After I substituted that y value, it had to turn into a plus. That means I had to substitute a -4. That's my y value. To plot this point from the origin, I'm going to go right 1 and down 4. And then I use my slope to plot more. Again, it's an integer. Make it a fraction so you can see what your rise and run is. I can either rise -1, so go down 1, and then to the right, a positive 1, or I could reverse it. I could make this my positive, and I could make my run my negative. I could go up 1 and left 1. Again, you want to plot your points in such a way that it represents a negative slope. The line is falling left to right. Connect with arrows. Hopefully this is pretty easy. I really like point slope form. This is one of my favorite forms. Whoops, I skipped one again. All right, number 5. My slope is 1/4. Again, if you look at this equation here in point slope form, there's no parentheses, so the thing that's being multiplied with the x is still going to be your slope. And think about what would have been in the parentheses here. It had to have been a 0, so that way we were able to drop the parentheses. So we've got an x value of 0, and we've got a y value of -2, not positive. I'm going to start by plotting the point. It sits right on the y-axis. I go 0 spaces left and right and then down 2. And then I can go up 1 and right 4 using my slope, my rise and run, or I could reverse the directions and go down 1 and left 4. Connect, arrows. I probably could have connected that a little bit better, but that's okay. Number 6. Oh, this one's a U-try, actually. Was the last one a U-try? Did I just make a goof? Nope, we're good, we're good. Okay, so starting from here, I'm not gonna pause because there's multiple of them. I encourage you to just pause on your own, and then when you unpause, you should see a graph here. Okay, so here's what you should have gotten for number 6. You should have gotten a slope of -1, which you can easily make a fraction, and your ordered pair should have been +3, comma, -4. The starting point is right here, where my pen is hovering, and you can go down 1, right 1, or up 1, left 1. Try the next one, number 7. Again, you'll want to pause the video here and then unpause to see the solution. Okay, so this is what your graph should look like. You should have gotten a slope of 2. Make it a fraction by putting it over 1. You should have gotten the ordered pair -1, comma, 0, which sits right here on the x-axis. And then you can go up to right 1 or down to left 1. Number 8. Go ahead and pause and give this one a try. Okay, so here's what it should look like. You should have gotten a slope of 1/2 and an ordered pair of 0, +4. Remember, there's no parentheses here and there's nothing being subtracted or added to the x. Therefore, the x1 value has to be 0. And then your line should be rising left to right. Number 9, give this one a go. Just pause the video before you look at my solution here. Okay, so here's what your graph should look like. You should have gotten a negative slope of 4/5, so that means when you graph your line, it should be falling left to right. And then your ordered pair should have been 5, comma, 1, which sits right here where my pen is hovering. You could either go down 4 and right 5, or up 4 and left 5. I think there's one more. Yes, there is. Number 10. Is this the last one, actually? Oh, no, there's more. There's a long one. Whoopsies. So give number 10 a try. Okay, so here's what my graph looked like for this one. Slope of +4/3, starting point is 3, comma, -1. So that was the last graphing example. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult. The next thing that we're going to talk about, which hopefully won't take too long because I think this video might be getting a little bit on the long side, is how to go the reverse direction, where I give you a graph and you have to write the equation. The first thing that you're going to want to do is find your slope by picking two lattice points. Okay, so in this first example, we have this graph. We got a nice lattice point here. We've got a nice one here. And it looks like we got another one here. Again, the lattice points are the parts of the line where it's crossing through those grid line crosshairs perfectly in the center. Obviously, we've got points all along this line, but we only want to pick the nice integer values because those are the easiest to work with. It doesn't matter which points I start with. I'm just going to start from this one and go to this one. I know that right off the bat, my slope should be a negative because the line's falling. I rise -4, and I run 1. So I can reduce this to -4. The next thing I need to do is I need to plug in the slope and a lattice point, okay, so specifically one of these 3 points, into the equation, which again, point slope form is the following. Now, just like in lesson 1, where I showed you that sometimes there's different ways to write your answer, same for these graphs. I have 3 points here. There's 3 different correct answers for this problem. I just need to pick one of them. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You could pick this one, or this one, or this one. For the sake of time, since we're running a little long, I'm just going to pick this top point up here, which if I wrote my ordered pair, this would be the ordered pair -1, 4. So when I substitute this and my slope into my equation, it's going to be y minus my y value of 4 equals -4 as my slope, open parentheses, and x minus -1. So this will simplify to a plus. So this is one answer that you could get for number 1, but it is not the only answer you could get. For number 2, I'm going to start by identifying some lattice points. Looks like we got quite a bit here. We've got one right at the tip of the arrow as well. And this one all the way down on the end. Okay, so we're going to start with the easy part. Let's figure out what our slope is. We should get a positive because the line's rising. I go up 2 and write 1. So rise 2, run 1, or my slope, in other words, is just 2. And again, look at how many lattice points we could plug into our equation here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 answers that could be different here, and all of them would be correct if we substituted correctly. I'm just going to pick this ordered pair right here, no rhyme or reason. That's the ordered pair -3, -3. So when I substitute here, I'm going to write y minus, and then my x value is -3 equals 2, parentheses x minus, my x value is -3. So if I used that as my ordered pair, I would want to simplify these to plus signs. And again, you don't have to use this ordered pair. You could use this one. You could use this one up here, up here. It doesn't matter. Okay, I believe, whoops, I've got a couple more that I'm going to walk you guys through very quickly, and then I will give you some to try. So here we've got a lattice point. Looks like there's one there, 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 and here. So again, just pick 2 points and find your slope. Between any 2 points here, I rise -2 and run 1. So my slope is -2. And I'm just going to pick this ordered pair right here. This is the ordered pair 2, 1. So if I substitute this into point slope form, I'm going to substitute a y value of 1 for y1. My slope is -2, and I'm going to write x minus, and then the x value of 2. Okay, again, any of these points along this line would have given you a correct answer. There's not enough time to list them all. Number 4, we've got a nice lattice point here. It looks like there's one where the arrow tip is. There's one sitting on the y-axis, and then there's one down here. My slope is going to be positive because the line's rising. I rise 3, run 1. We've gotten nothing but integer slopes so far. That's not always the case. It just happened to be the case here. And I'm going to use, you know what? I'm going to use this point that's sitting on the y-axis. This is the ordered pair 0, -1. Let's mix it up. So instead of y minus y1, it's going to be y minus -1 equals 3 parentheses x minus 0. There's a couple things I can do to simplify here. I definitely want to simplify the double negatives. I can simplify this part too. Again, if students in my class wrote it this way, that would be fine. But the -0 isn't going to affect the x, so I can just write it as 3x. I can also drop the parentheses because if the 0 is not there, I'm just multiplying the 3 with the x anyways. Okay, so I'm going to give you a total of 4 of them, I believe, to try. So I'll pause the video, and what I'll do is I will take the time to write all of the different answers that you could potentially get, and you'll just want to check to see if you wrote it correctly for one of the ordered pairs. Okay, so here's what I'm getting for all of the possible answers for number 1. I either got this is my equation if I use this top lattice point, or I got this is my equation when I use the bottom lattice point. Now, for number 2, and I know I said I was going to write every single equation that you could potentially get, but when I saw all of these lattice points, I was like, oh my goodness, nobody has time for that. So I picked a point that has some positives. I picked a point that has a positive and a negative, and then I just left it at that. If you used another ordered pair, and if you have any questions, if you're not sure, you may just want to reach out to your teacher. So if I used the ordered pair that had nothing but positives, they would both have minus signs. Notice that my slope is 1, so I don't need to write it, and therefore I don't need the parentheses. If you used anything that had a negative, you just want to make sure that when you substitute it, you simplify those double negatives to a plus sign. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to pause the video. I'll write most, if not all of the equations, unless there's a lot of lattice points, then I may just do a couple. Okay, guys, here's what I'm getting as some potential answers for each of these. Again, there were a lot of points for number 3, so I picked a couple of points. One of them had a negative. The other one, I chose a point that had a 0 in it. You should have gotten a slope of -1. Notice when you write this in front of the parentheses, you don't need to write the 1. You can just write a minus sign. And then for number 4, there were 3 points. I could have written all 3, but I decided since I did one with a 0 over here, I would just use these 2 ordered pairs. The ones that have the negatives, you should have plus signs. And then the one that had a positive and a negative, the y should have a positive near it, and the x should read x minus 3. So that is pretty much it for today's lesson. Hopefully it wasn't too difficult. Good luck with all of the math problems today, and I'll see you guys next time.